What do you think is going on with the whole Trump raid? How did this all happen? And how do you think it's real that the White House had no idea and then Biden had no idea? Is that possible? How close is the president to making calls like this?
Well, I think you got to look at this president, but somebody knew, right? So I'm just not sure if this guy has the mental capacity to digest and analyze. Mm-hmm. But yeah, somebody there knows. There's no doubt in my mind about that. To have a sitting attorney general bring this to a federal judge and say we have enough for a search warrant, we have probable cause that establishes this crime, which again, we'll never see that affidavit, which is what we need to see in order to establish what the charges were potentially going to be. We're going to see this. Here's the inventory of what they took or what they didn't find, whatever. Now, in order to do that, you have to convince a federal judge that, in fact, you tried everything else in your power in order to get these documents that they needed. And I'm very cynical about the fact that if you're a good agent, if you're an agent who can walk in and say, hey, look, and this is the way I would approach it. Look, let me tell you something. I've got this subpoena forthwith, which means I can't leave here today without these 11 documents. And I have a family, my kids playing Little League. I know how to kind of work it and get the feeling, put the finger on the pulse of that attorney that's representing the Trump family and say, are we going to get these today? Or are they there? Am I barking up the wrong tree? Didn't we ask for these before? I just want to know because I don't want to waste a lot of time. That's the way to do it. But the fact of the matter is they wanted to make a spectacle. When I say they, I'm not sure which side it was.
What do you mean by that?
Well, you can go either way on this, right? You can think about midterms are coming up. Democrats are obviously trying to divert attention to the failures over the course of the last year and a half or whatever it is. So they're going to try to dirty this guy up so that he never establishes himself again as a potential Republican candidate. One way to look at it. Definitely a logical thought process and something that most Americans probably are thinking that way. Here's my thought. What if you're the Kushners and Ivanka Trump? What if you're that family and you say to yourself two things? First off, we're losing a little ground here. He's kind of doesn't have a platform to pop off. He's not getting, views either way as being the right guy, the wrong guy, or the party guy, right? What if we push this on him and allow him to, in fact, accept those rushing back to his side? This is my conspiracy theory, but I got to believe it. You know where Kushner and his wife were that night that this thing was served?
No.
Eating dinner in Minneapolis at a quiet restaurant by themselves. Somebody needed to talk about Mar-a-Lago, right? Somebody needed to talk about the layout of the house. You cannot get a search warrant without explaining explicitly to that federal judge in writing and in person, because there's a briefing that goes on with this. Here's what the house looks like. Now it's like 108 rooms or something crazy.
Right.
You got to know exactly where this stuff is, what the house looks like, what the veneer is, what the paint is, what the stucco walls look like. You have to know that. Who the hell, besides Secret Service, who the hell else is going to know it? Family members. My conspiracy theory. Secret Service never do that. They would never do that.
There's a rat on the inside.
I do, but I think it's a pointed rat. And it's somebody that made a decision, a conscious decision. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that there was no talking to him. The daughter would go at him. Ivanka would go at him about keeping his mouth shut, stopping the tweets. Just settle down, relax. Nope, he knows better, right? And I'm not either way. I'm not a supporter. I'm not a hater of Donald Trump. I think we need to find the right mix for a president who's going to take us to through the next 10 years. I worry about my grandson, what it's going to look like. But I think they figured out a way to kind of do both. Quiet him down, and at the same time, give him a platform to discuss going forward that, look at this, they found nothing. I'm not charged. They tried with the January 6th. They tried with the impeachment. Right. They tried with this search warrant, and they can't get me. It's almost, it's endearing. It's endearing to the party and the people who are in the middle.
Yeah,
it's weird.
It almost makes his base just run to his side even more. It seems like it helps him more. And I think, if anything, that it's just going to solidify any decision if he was ever on the fence to run for president again.
I totally agree. And that's, listen, it's out there, and I probably have, buddies in the bureau that are like, what the hell's the matter with you? But they're thinking it. They're thinking it because they know what it takes to get that warrant.
And in his statement, I think he said that the FBI demanded that he turn off his security cameras. His attorneys couldn't be there to witness it. What else? There was a bunch of crazy things. Why would they ask to turn off the security cameras? And then they cracked the safe, and there was nothing in the safe except his passports, which they took. Which
you could have asked to be turned over and reviewed and have a judge look at why are we taking these passports? Why are we preventing this man from traveling overseas? What is the reason?
And now he's suing the DOJ, right?
And he should. He should. That's ridiculous. We didn't take passports from some people that were known criminals. We left them with their passport. It makes no sense to me. There's a lot about this that just reeks of, worst case scenario corruption, best case scenario poor judgment.
So he's talking about some sort of watchdog or something that he wants to get implemented. Somebody that sort of like watches it. I don't understand any of this. I'm sure Julian would know what it means, but
yeah,
he wants to have some sort of person in place to monitor whatever they have at the DOJ or whatever kind of evidence or whatever the documents are, to make sure that they don't release it to the public, or to make sure only the right things are released to the public. But I think he's suing for this specific reason.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the right move, because you're not sure who's anything that doesn't go hand in hand with, I shouldn't say hand in hand, but anything that's questionable that can be an issue for national security, can be an issue for his own personal security, can be an issue for anybody within his organization, needs to be closely monitored, closely scrutinized, and then redacted if necessary.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we do it in the military. We
Right.
do it in the military. If we're on a special, Jack Carr is a perfect example. SEAL Team 6 guy, wrote a bunch of books. If you listen to his books, it's funnier listening to them. And they're great books, and I love it. Reading it, you don't get the true thing, but if you're listening to the book, every other, like in a paragraph, maybe every 10 pages, and there they were in redacted. And the guy just says redact it. So because, the Navy reviewed it and said, no, you can't share this stuff. But it's kind of a similar deal where and I think that's what he's calling for. Hey, let's make sure we're not redacting stuff that's going to be meaningful to the actual explanation of why they tried to get this search warrant and why it failed. So it's almost like an inspector general role, which I'm a full proponent of an IG in any organization, because I think it's somebody that doesn't have sides, that's independent. Outside, even independent prosecutors are not independent. Let's face it. They're brought in as a hired gun, but if you have a true inspector general that's going to come in, look at the problems with this case, look at the problems with other cases, look at the problems with a program that national security or the FBI is running, and say, look, here are the 4 or 5 things you need to get right. You're not doing it right. And I'm being as objective as I can with you. Stop being, do this the right way. Get it done. I think that's what he's kind of calling for. And you're always confused with any messaging that he puts out.
And I think it's also almost comical that the FBI can raid Mar-a-Lago, but no one's saying anything about raiding anybody to get Ghislaine Maxwell's list.
Isn't that the truth? How powerful would that list be?
Are you kidding me?
Right? That could expose everyone that's anyone.
Yeah.